Hey y'all, welcome to Sandy's Library. I'm Sandy, and in this video, we're going to talk about Willie's fourth marriage to Winnie the Nightmare. These are old family tales about my grandmother's people. So if you need visuals, there are links in the description outlining both of my grandparents' family trees. So let's go ahead and get started. All of my relatives and I can agree that Willie's fourth marriage to Winnie Doughty was definitely a nightmare marriage. Winnie Crowell Doughty was the daughter of A.L. and Polly Crowell. She married Louis G. Doughty in 1895, and they had 3 children together, Nettie, Guy, and Gertie. I'm not sure when Winnie and Louis divorced, and to be honest, I'm not that invested in finding out, but it was probably between 1910 and 1920. I saw Louis and Winnie together on the 1900 and 1910 censuses, but not the 1920. I believe after divorcing Louis, Winnie had another brief marriage because when she and Willie applied for a marriage license, she listed herself by the name Mrs. W.J. Parkress. Nevertheless, she was known to the family as Winnie Doughty. Willie was 58 when he married Winnie, who was 52, in Monroe, Louisiana on October 31st, 1927. Halloween. And y'all, that's befitting since his marriage would soon turn into a nightmare for Willie and indirectly the rest of the Williams children as well. The first clue that something was amiss here is the fact that they were married by a Methodist minister. Willie was a priest in the RLDS church, and it speaks volumes to me that he goes to a Methodist minister to perform the ceremony. Why? Couldn't he find somebody from the church to marry them? I mean, as the story goes, as soon as they were married, Winnie became resentful of Willie's children. Our half-cousin says, the reason being that they didn't come running out to greet her. And if true, that fallacy, y'all, would cost them. Very quickly, the adult children found out they couldn't have much to do with their father anymore due to Winnie's jealousy. My grandmother has said this about her third stepmother. Winnie wasn't anything but an old wench. Okay, so the story that Aunt Allie tells our half-cousin in 1980 goes a little something like this. And y'all, I have applied minimal editing for clarity's sake. Nevertheless, as time passed, Willie found it increasingly difficult to please his new wife. We assume that Winnie didn't want to do as Willie advised her. First, he says it became increasingly difficult to please her. Then he suggests that it was because she wouldn't do as she was told. Let's be real, y'all. When you say Winnie didn't want to do as Willie advised her, it's basically a polite way of twisting the story away from the truth, which is probably more like Winnie didn't want to do as she was told. And I don't blame her. I don't like being told what to do either. The only difference is I don't go all psycho when somebody tries to test their boundaries with me. But anyway, in the fall of 1928, after about a year of marriage between Willie and Winnie, well, by our half-cousin's calculations anyway, nevertheless, in the fall of 1928, Willie's daughter Allie, her husband Roy Phillips, and their 2 daughters, Margie, age 6, and Edith, age 3, came for a visit. Allie said that because of Winnie, she didn't want to stay at her father's house. but she knew it would break his heart if she went somewhere else. So she brushed aside her gut feeling and stayed at Willie's place. Hey, y'all, if there's one thing I know, just trust your gut. Anyway, as it turned out, Allie's Uncle John Fuller was also in town visiting from Missouri, and he was Lizzie's brother. So, Willie decides it's a good idea for him and Roy to go see John Fuller so they can all go fishing, just like they used to. And he proceeds to tell his wife what he's going to do. Our half-cousin says Winnie got so angry she had a fit and walked out of the house, very mad. You don't say. Let's see. Willie's gone off to spend the day with his former brother-in-law, who, by the way, Willie still refers to as his brother-in-law, and he leaves Winnie at home with his daughter and her kids, who she barely knows. Plus, Winnie thinks all Willie's kids hate her anyways, yet our half-cousin can't imagine why Winnie would be mad. So, according to our half-cousin, our clueless great-grandfather Willie proceeds to tell Allie, no matter what she does, don't say anything to make her mad. She flies off the handle like a psycho. Honestly, y'all, I seriously doubt that Willie was using the phrase fly off the handle like a psycho in 1928. I mean, if he did, he was way ahead of his time. So anyway, Allie promises to be on her best behavior while Willie's gone. Did she have control of her behavior back then? Wonder when she lost it. Probably way before I was born. Because she was very good at being a cold and aloof old bitch by the time I came along. But anyway, our half-cousin says, Allie reminisces that her father had a beautiful garden that year, and she and Winnie went out to pick some butter beans, okra, and tomatoes to fix for dinner, which is lunch in the South, y'all. Supper is the evening meal. Anyway, while in the garden, Winnie says, I thought you would have been mad at me. All the rest of them are. They're mad because your daddy remarried. So Aunt Allie reported that she said, I don't know anything about that. We just got here. And y'all, I ain't even going to talk about how odd it is that Aunt Allie didn't have an opinion about something. But nevertheless, when he comes back with, well, they're all mad. They won't even come around. And Allie says she was trying to be nice by saying, that's too bad. But honestly, y'all, Aunt Allie being nice, that's a laugh. And I don't mean to imply that she was mean either, because she wasn't. She was just selfish and self-centered. And the Aunt Allie that I knew loved to gossip. So, this restrained Allie seems foreign to me. I would have liked to have met her, though, if she existed at all. Anyway, after wrapping up in the garden, they went back to the house, where Allie proceeded to shell the butter beans. Meanwhile, Winnie muddled around in the kitchen, preparing to cook their meal. Allie said that Winnie kept talking the whole time, and the more she talked, the madder she got. Allie tried to change the subject, but Winnie kept on slamming cabinet doors and banging pots and pans. Her behavior continued while Allie went to the well to draw water, and after she came back to the kitchen and built a fire in the wood stove. And the whole time they're cooking, Winnie's bitching like crazy. So, they've got this big old meal prepared and laid out on the table by the time the men return. And Willie brought John Fuller with them. He'd invited John to spend the night because they had big plans to go fishing first thing in the morning. So, the next thing our half-cousin says is, Winnie, by this time, was really worked up. And for some reason, she began to rant and rave. Seriously? For some reason? And you can't figure out why? In this portion of the story, our half-cousin himself refers to John Fuller as Willie's brother-in-law. And as Lizzie's descendant, I'm cool with that. To me, it speaks volumes about where Willie's heart truly was. But if I was one of Jesse's descendants, that probably wouldn't make me feel all warm and fuzzy. Just saying. Plus, Aunt Allie specifically thought the reason that she was so mad was because of John Fuller's presence. So, here we are, with everybody sitting down at the table to eat. Nobody saying anything, except Winnie. And her rants are growing progressively worse. Finally, Willie says, "Well, what in the world is the matter, Winnie? We haven't been gone all that long, and we got back before dinner was cold on the table. So what are you mad about?" Y'all, let's just call my great-grandfather Clueless Willie. I think that's what we should call him, Clueless Willie. Anyway, Allie said that she and her father looked at each other, both fearful of where the situation was headed. Winnie turned to Willie and said, "Well, hell, I've got 2 homes, and I can go to either one I want to." Willie tells her, "That's all right, but I hope you don't want to go over to the other one right now, because we've got company." Frankly, y'all, I'm not sure if Willie really was just clueless or if he was actually a narcissist. Anyway, Winnie says, "I'll just go to my other home." And you know, I can see where a mentally unstable person might be feeling a little overwhelmed by the presence of a spouse's former in-laws who keep coming around like they're still family. Then Allie pipes in with, "You don't have to do that. We'll go somewhere else." And then she proudly caps it off with, "We don't want to upset you." Trouble is, y'all, that's the last thing you want to say to a person with mental health issues. You know, it's just not something that you want to say to somebody like that has issues. It sets them off. But anyway, our half-cousin's next bit reads, "One word led to another between Willie and Winnie until she became so enraged she cussed him and even went so far as to cuss Jesus Christ." I wish someone would have said a word or two about those words that led to her cussing. But apparently, Uncle John Fuller was afraid of cursing Jesus. As Aunt Allie said, he jumped up and headed for the door. She says she grabbed onto his arm to leave with him, saying, "Oh, my Lord, Uncle Johnny." Allie says she grabbed at her father's arm, but he didn't want to go. He stayed inside to try to reason with Winnie. Okay, so first off, who tries to reason with a psycho? If that's what you really think of her, if you think she's really a psycho, why the hell are you trying to reason with her? And those are Willie's words, not mine. I mean, he's the one that called her a psycho. Seriously, y'all, only a narcissist would assume they, of all people, can reason with someone when nobody else can. And secondly, why does Willie not seem to see his part in all this? Maybe that's why my grandmother always told me that messing with crazy people is like poking a bear. Allie and Johnny went out to the back porch and sat down while Willie continued to try to reason with Winnie inside the house. John told Allie, when someone goes to cussing Jesus, I'm getting away from them. Okay, so as we come to the end of this incredibly long paragraph, yes, everything that I've just told you about Willie and Winnie so far was written in one gigantically long paragraph in our half-cousin's manuscript. So, thankfully, we're at the end of that paragraph, just not the confusion. But it's a good thing that I do know the basics of this story. So, our half-cousin says, after the argument, Willie came out to the porch. Willie was torn up and worried until he didn't know what to do. I don't even know what that last sentence means, y'all. I mean, I'd know what to do. Send that bitch on down the road. But no, Willie seems to be a glutton for punishment. So, anyway, as the story goes, Winnie packed her bags and left, only to return a few minutes later saying she wanted Willie to pay her $500 or $600 for her part of the crops. She said that she had helped gather them and she wanted her money. Y'all remember that gold digger label they were trying to pin on Lily? Well, now, with Winnie, we're getting closer to what a gold digger actually is. Excuse me. So, Willie ended up borrowing $350 from his son-in-law, Roy Phillips. Allie didn't want Willie to give Winnie any money. She said the crops weren't worth much more than that anyway, and she was sure that Winnie would be back in a day or two asking for more. Yeah, that was probably a good call. Willie, who apparently wasn't listening to Allie at all, assured her that he'd pay her and Roy back. It's like Willie only ever heard what he wanted to hear. No matter what was said to him, he always heard what he wanted to hear and nothing else. When he presented Winnie with Roy and Allie's $350, he promised to get the rest of her money to her in a few days. To which Winnie replied, "I'll kill you. If you fool with me, I will come back down here and burn up everything you've got. I'll burn this whole mess down." Now, y'all, that's a pretty serious threat from where I'm sitting. But y'all know what Willie says? He says, "Don't do that. You might want to come back later." What? Is he insane? Well, anyway, when he says, "No, I won't come back here," then our half-cousin states that Willie tried again to reason with Winnie, saying, "Why would you do that? I've tried to pay you what you asked. Why would you come back and burn what little junk I've got? I haven't done one thing against you. Allie and the others haven't said one word to offend you." And once again, y'all, Willie, my great-grandfather, will not own up to his part in all of this. It's his actions, which he refuses to change, that are the catalyst for Winnie's episodic outburst. All I see in this story is Willie telling everybody around them to treat Winnie with kid gloves so they don't make her mad, while Willie goes on about his business, which includes, incidentally, doing things that he already knows will make Winnie mad. My great-grandfather should have been the poster child for the "do as I say, not as I do" mantra that would one day plague my generation. So anyway, our half-cousin says that Winnie took her $350 and went over to her son's house, which was located across the road from Joe Holton's place. Well, that's a lot of help. Who here thinks that information is going to help anybody in 200 years? Hell, even I'm not sure where the Joe Holton place was located. My best guess is that it was somewhere on the Joe Holton Road near the intersection of Highway 34 or the Jonesboro Road. But we all know about educated guesses. Anyway, after Winnie left, they all finished dinner and John Fuller decided to spend the night. After all, they were going fishing in the morning. So, let me get this straight. After this crazy lady threatens to burn down the house and shit, Willie acts like it's no big deal, and he goes ahead with his plans for the following day. And Aunt Allie says she tried to warn her father and the others that Winnie was going to do something, but no one would listen to her. Now, whether or not Aunt Allie actually knew at the time that something was going to happen, we'll never know. But it's worth noting that any idiot should have been able to figure it out. So we're going to go with the premise that she had this gut feeling and was trying to warn her father, who obviously is an idiot, so no one would believe her. So, were all these men just stupid? I find that incredibly hard to believe. I'm more inclined to believe that all of them, including Aunt Allie, thought Winnie was just blowing smoke. And that's why Allie went with them on the fishing trip the next day. But on the off chance that Winnie really was psycho crazy, why wouldn't Willie take her seriously? There is something missing from this story, y'all. Nevertheless, here we are on October 18th, 1928, where the entire group goes fishing at Shenny Lake, leaving the house unprotected. And apparently, most of their neighbors, which were some of Willie's grown children and other members of the Fuller family, also went on this fishing trip. Allie says she tried to take their suitcases with them, but Roy wouldn't let her because he thought they'd be in the way. And he was certain that Willie wasn't going to do anything. Winnie wasn't going to do anything. Boy, Aunt Allie's version of the story sure makes the men sound stupid. And y'all, Willie didn't need no help with that. So, they're all off having a great time, catching lots of fish. And I think we're going to save the rest of this story for another video. But we'll be back soon with part 2, where we're going to find out just how miffed Winnie still is. Wow, the Williams and Fuller families are going off fishing. So, stay tuned. Later, Gators.